Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Woo! I am not too proud to beg for applause. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rich Buery. I have the deep honor of being the CEO of Robinhood. And I am so glad to welcome you here to our 34th annual Heroes Breakfast. Welcome. You know, at Robinhood, we believe in the American dream. But we also know that that dream is a work in progress. But we also believe that New York City can be at the vanguard of making the American dream the American reality. As New York City's largest poverty-fighting organization, Robinhood has proudly invested over $3 billion to educate, employ, house, and support New Yorkers over the past 35 years. And none of that extraordinary work would be possible without the people in this room. As you all know, Robinhood is all about New York City, and we're here today to celebrate some amazing New Yorkers. But before we do, I want to take a moment to talk about what's happening across the globe. My hero, and probably the hero of many of you, Reverend Martin Luther King, once wrote, "All men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny." That's why, as New Yorkers, we feel the pain of Hamas's brutal attacks in Israel a month and a half ago. We mourn those who were murdered and pray for the return of those held hostage. We demand justice and peace for the victims, their families, and their loved ones. As New Yorkers, we mourn the loss of civilian life in Gaza. We are overwhelmed by their pain and suffering, and our hearts break for our fellow human beings. As New Yorkers, we grieve with our many neighbors who have lost loved ones during this conflict. And as New Yorkers, we stand against hate in all of its forms, especially now with anti-Semitism and Islamophobia are on the rise. Because we know that we can't be a city of opportunity if we're not a city where everyone feels and is safe. I think this all hits us a little differently in New York because we know what it's like to experience a terrorist attack that shatters the world as we know it. And the thing that I most remember from the days after 9/11, and really after every crisis our city has faced, whether it's Superstorm Sandy to the pandemic, it's that crisis breeds courage. At Robinhood, we find courage in the organizations that open their doors to welcome and serve our community. We find courage in those New Yorkers who take every opportunity to build a better life for themselves, even against extraordinary odds. And we find courage in all of you, people who are willing to step up and invest year after year in the fabric and the future of our extraordinary city, in good times and in bad times. Today, we celebrate those heroes, the people who make New York City the greatest city in the world. I want to start by celebrating someone who's been a hero to me, a hero to Robinhood, and a hero to children. When Marian Wright Edelman, founder of the Children's Defense Fund, joined Robinhood's board in 1993, she had already dedicated her life to building a better America for our children. After becoming the first Black woman to be admitted to the Mississippi Bar, Marian served as an attorney at the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund and helped coordinate Dr. King's vision for the Poor People's Campaign. Under her leadership, the Children's Defense Fund has grown to become the nation's strongest voice for children and families. Her 30 years of leadership on our board have been essential to making Robinhood the organization that we are. Marian is transitioning to the Emeritus Board, so she's stepping off the board of directors. And today, as she transitions, we are proud to name a Heroes Award in her honor. Marion couldn't join us today, but I know she feels all the love and admiration in this room. And so, I now have the privilege to introduce this morning's first honoree, who also happens to be the first recipient of the Marion Wright Edelman Heroes Award. Right now, 1.4 million New Yorkers live in poverty. And if you're Black, Latino, or Asian, that's more than twice as likely to be true. 62,000 of those New Yorkers sleep in shelter every night. Even though we know that giving people housing vouchers, so government subsidies that help you pay your rent, can help keep people in their homes and out of shelter, we also know that only 25% of the people who have housing vouchers are able to use them. A big part of the problem is that many landlords illegally refuse to accept housing vouchers because they want to keep low-income New Yorkers out of their buildings or out of their neighborhoods. It's one of the reasons why, despite the big investments that our city and state have made in rental assistance, the average family who enters a homeless shelter in New York has a stay of over 400 days. Even when people have the money to rent a home, illegal discrimination can stop them from doing so. Drawing on the legacy of civil rights leaders like Dr. King, who used testing to prove race-based housing discrimination, about 4 years ago, Robin Hood began partnering with the Fair Housing Justice Center to test for discrimination based on the use of rental vouchers here in New York City. FHJC hires and trains testers who pose as prospective tenants, some with housing vouchers and some who don't, to detect whether people are treated differently by landlords, by agents, and by property managers when they're seeking apartment. This type of testing is really the only way to uncover the sophisticated discrimination and the subtle methods of discrimination that can keep people out of stable housing. FHJC does more than prove that discrimination exists. They're committed to doing something about it. They've helped countless New Yorkers enforce their housing rights, and their work has opened 80,000 units of housing to low-income tenants. And it's helped, applause for that. We've also helped secure $54 million in damage and penalties that go into the pockets of low-income New Yorkers. For taking people from shelter to stable housing, it is my honor to present the Marion Wright Edelman Robin Hood Hero Award to the Fair Housing Justice Center and Nana Zakia.
Wow, oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. And that's what every family needs to start out with, a beautiful morning and a beautiful day, a warm house, nice breakfast, good parents and family. Oh, Lord the mercy. Let me start this. It's kind of emotional. Today's my mom's birthday as well. So I'm celebrating that Scorpio. My name is Nana Zakia. I'm a New Yorker. I lived here mostly all of my life. I was raised in Harlem by hard-working people. My mother was the head nurse at Harlem Hospital for 35 years, and my father was a hospital police sergeant for 25. There were 4 of us kids, and I'm the oldest, so you know what that means. We were kids from the projects before the projects got a bad rep. We grew up good in the 1960s and 70s, when everyone looked after everyone and nobody dared to try to beat up anybody's mama. And if Miss Ann saw you skipping school, there was no threatening her, no telling her to mind her business. You just got to step in line. Get to getting and step in line and pray that your mama didn't hear the news when you got home. If you know anything that is useful, no. As a matter of fact, it was Miss Ann, Anna Thompson, who got me into teaching dance. I was 16, and I didn't think I had much to offer, just learning dance for the last 3 years, going to classes, doing my thing. And she said, well, if you know anything, have any kind of knowledge, and someone doesn't, then you are the teacher. You just taught somebody. Just teach what you know. I took that with me. So I started teaching dance and theater and opening up the doors in the minds of all of our children in the same projects I grew up in. I started working with several nonprofits in the community. I led and worked after school programs, police athletic league summer camp, day camp programs. I had my own radio and cable show. I was interviewing politicians, civic leaders, people doing positive things, not only in Harlem, but throughout New York, wherever we were. In 2001, I went and I moved to Africa for about 7 years. I went to work with an organization called the Women of Proverbs 8. Look up Proverbs 8. 7 years later, I had to come back. My mother was sick. She was suffering from cancer, and I had to come back and take care of her until she died. And then, after she died, being who I am, I started taking care of another elder that I grew up with all my life. Knew my mama, knew my grandma, knew my daddy, knew my sisters and my brothers. I started taking care of her. Her children had abandoned her. There's a thing going on now. It's called elder parent abandonship. A lot of people are leaving their elder parents behind because they got their lives, they're moved to other cities, and they don't have the time. Somebody picks up the slack, and so it was me with this particular elder. So I helped her, I fixed up the house, I lived with her, tended to her daily needs, and for 3 years, it was just us, just her and me. Then she died in the middle of the pandemic of April 2020. Then all of a sudden, her children came back to claim the apartment and began threatening me. I had to leave in fear for my own life at the height of the pandemic. I spent the next 3 years, from 2020 until 2023, shuffling through the shelter system, from Brooklyn to the Bronx to Queens, get up, move, right, left, like a soldier, just take those orders, never knowing what's gonna happen, the inconsistency. Here I am, 67 years old, living like I was 17, unable to go to places because the shelters have curfews and you have to ask permission if you can stay out and do whatever it is that you need to do. Write a letter, a lot of stuff I'm not used to because I'm 67, not 17. I had no space to dance, no room to store my instruments, and I couldn't cook my healthy foods while I was in the shelter. I was in pain and I needed surgery. But how can you have surgery when you're going back to the shelter to recover? So many people in the shelter system are broken-spirited. I had already been attacked twice. I didn't tell anybody I was homeless. Just keep on doing what I'm doing, silent. The stigma is real. And I knew folks couldn't help me anyway. Everybody's going through their stuff. No need to stress the ones that love you, so you just suffer in silence. I was like an albatross, you know, that bird that flies and circumvents the globe twice in 2 months, never to land. That was me. Then somewhere in the shelter system, I finally met a wonderful social worker. Her name was Valerie. And she said to me, I promise, if you apply for Section 8, you're going to get the voucher. To a skeptical me, you know how many times I tried for that Section 8 and got rejected? Okay, let's go. Let's do this. Had a little faith in her, and she had a little more than faith in me. And then the voucher came. Wow, it was good. I found an apartment, but it was very tiny. It was a 3-story walk-up, and I still hadn't had the surgery. So she went with me, and then it was the agent that was showing me the apartment. He said, listen, let me help you. He started calling landlords. I got this client. She works. She's a nice lady. She has a voucher. But every time he mentioned the word voucher by phone or text, they would give him runaround, and then they would ghost him, and not Casper either. These places ask you to prove that you have income at least 40 to 50 times the rent. But my voucher covered the rent, so why wasn't I getting an apartment? It's guaranteed. And there's never a guarantee, especially in these days, that any tenant can keep a job or keep a home. I've learned a lot of lessons. As a Black woman, I've experienced my share of discrimination, but income discrimination is hidden and it's hard to find and to prove. There's nothing strange, and there's something strange going on, the agent said. So he connected me to Fair Housing Justice System. When I got to Fair Housing Justice Center, they had said, well, we're going to do some testing. We're going to find out what's going on. And I was like, oh, well, this is going to take about 10 years. Get that going. Anyway, they did 14 different tests, and they applied for the same apartments that I was interested in to see if there was any pattern based on source income. Well, now the evidence came overwhelming. We have a case here, okay, said Elizabeth of FHJC. They introduced me to my lawyer, Deborah Kapakrin, and I felt like I had a team. I'm telling you, I felt like I had a team of Wonder Women behind me. They just put that lasso of truth and they hit those landlords and they wrangled them in, and they had to come clean that they did me wrong. Sometimes rescuers need a rescue. It's like Superman is glad that Jimmy Olsen followed him around and took the kryptonite out of the room. Healers need healers. And I needed to lean on somebody. I'm not used to that because I'm always giving. You know how that is. And let me tell you, FHJC, they let me lean on them. We filed a lawsuit in August of 2022, and less than a year later, we leveraged the power of the pending lawsuit to get me an apartment in one of the buildings I now love. For the past 5 months, I've been living in a one-bedroom apartment in Crooklyn, Brooklyn. If my Harlem friends could see me now. I'm over there with Spike Lee. Not just any neighborhood, but what FHJC calls a high opportunity neighborhood. And I can tell you, that's exactly how it feels. It's not far from the beach. I'm a beach girl, I love it. And it's safe and it's clean. I appreciate everything that y'all have done for me. FHJC, Wonder Women with that lasso. Keep wrangling everybody in so they can be happy. I appreciate you. The first day that I put the key in the door, I was surrounded by all these boxes. You know, when you're moving in, you got all these boxes and you're looking at them. And you're just like, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna start this? This is a job. I was like, okay. Spirit said to me, start with your health. So I opened up the box of kitchen stuff. That's what the box said, kitchen stuff. And inside there was a rice cooker my mama brought me as a housewarming gift. When I came back to Africa, I never opened it up. I just never opened it. I could hear her voice the day that she told me I needed that rice cooker. Nana, you need a rice cooker. You be cooking and doing all this stuff, everything. You need to do something fast. I know how to cook rice, Ma. I don't need no rice cooker. No, you always doing something. You're gonna need a rice cooker to do something fast. You know how your mama talked to you, right? So I was like, okay. She visited me in New York, and then she left New York, and then the next thing I know, came the rice cooker. I put it away. I never used it because I was still old-fashioned. But here it was, 3 years in the shelter system. And my mom's was there with me. It was like I was having a housewarming. Excuse me. And my mama was there with me. There was nobody else. And I appreciate that mother's love coming out and reaching out from beyond the grave and letting me know I was okay, that I was strong. I made it through the storm. I appreciated that. I cried for 15 minutes, but I'm not going to cry here for 15 minutes. Even though today's her birthday, thank you, Robin Hood. Thank you for being the merry man and making sure that people like myself get a chance to make it and make New York better. I now can feel my creativity coming back. My heart is opening up again. I've been able to get back to my drumming, my dance, my singing, my herbalism. I started doing women's healing circles again, speaking to youth about alternative to violence. I've been through a lot, and I could call it tragic, but it's not tragic. It's a blessing. It's not all about me. A whole lot of other people are suffering like this. Men coming out of prison, women experience domestic violence, teens that have no place to stay. But it's not just them. I met brilliant women. When I say brilliant, brilliant women in the shelter system. Women with PhDs. One was teaching at NYU, and another one was working with the UN. And that sister just got her apartment just a month ago, and she just got a call just this week, and she's going to be doing some work for the people in Gaza. We deserve a place to stay and live, affordable. There are plenty of empty apartments all over New York. You could issue all the vouchers in the world, but if the landlords don't take them, they aren't worth the paper they're written on. What I love about Fair Housing Justice Center is that it's not just the filing of my suit that impacts so many and others, but there's accountability that makes vouchers what they are intended to be, a rollback home for New Yorkers in need, that yellow brick road, get out of Oz, get back home. All my life, New York really has been a village, a community where everyone stepped forward to help or teach when they have something to give. It happened with Valerie. She had faith and she told me to stand strong. It happened with the agent who said, I like your vibe. Let me help you. It happened with my lawyer, Deborah, who told me to stand fast, don't worry. We got these guys, we're gonna wrangle them in. And it happened with Elizabeth. It happened with Stephanie and Jennifer and everybody who's been good to me since I've been on this road, this yellow brick road back home. There is no place like home. And it's happening right here and right now with all of you. I want to thank my team of Wonder Women: Deborah, Marianne, Heather, Elizabeth, and Marulika. And of course, my beloved mother, whose birthday is today, and all of my ancestors who taught me to be love, give love, just help when you can, and you'll be okay. And I want to thank Robin Hood for protecting the New York I love and the New York I am proud to call home. I finally got back home, and I appreciate that. Continue the work, all of you who are out there giving, because when you give, you get back more than what the dollars. You get back people like me who come back and give back, and we just keep New York what it's supposed to be, the international place where people come with their music, their arts, their politics, and they make changes. Thank you for being the merry men and women of Robin Hood, and I appreciate you, and I thank you on behalf of my mother, my ancestors, and all the honorees and everyone who's worked here today. And I say, God morning, because every day, God gives us a chance to start a new day. Thank you.